everyone, another book recommendation video here, and today it is older YA books. These are books that I reckon people over the age of about 14 onwards could quite happily tackle. And just because I'm saying older YA, if you're in your 30s like me, 40s, 50s, 60s, you want to read these books, please go ahead and read these books, because just because it's in an age bracket doesn't mean it's just for those people. Everybody gets to read it. But I would suggest the content in some of these books are suitable for the over 14s or maturer readers, certainly. So I'm going to start off with some pretty obvious ones. If you're pretty new to YA and don't know much about it, YA is a teenage genre, and it's more of a label, really. It encompasses everything from fantasy to romance to contemporary. So it does the whole range. It just happens to be aimed more at the teenage audience than anything else. And I would say this series, this is the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins, is probably to blame a lot for the burst of teenage fiction we saw. This and the Twilight series. I've picked the Hunger Games as a series because it's a trilogy. It's a pretty damn good trilogy. It's very clear, it's easy to read, and it gives you a good outline of what teenage fiction is about. It's a dystopian, so it's sci-fi, and it's basically battle royale, but more from a personal perspective. This is more about surviving and what you do to survive and what you do to protect the ones you love. I do have a very soft spot for this series. I whistled through all three books very, very quick. I highly enjoy the films and I would recommend them. And I know a lot of people moan about Mockingjay being split into two parts, but to be honest, what goes on in this book wouldn't have been contained in one film. There was a lot to go in there, there's a lot to pack in. And I will say the films improve slightly on the books because they give you the background of everything else going on. You get to see things from other people's point of views, and you get to experience other characters' reactions and emotions. Whereas this series is very much from Katniss Everdeen's point of view. We're in her head, we understand her the most. But a great place to start. Moving on from the Hunger Games, I've got the Gone series here, which are these beautifully, highly colourful bookend plates. These are my husband's. The Gone series is written by Michael Grant. This again is a dystopian future series. Basically one day the kids wake up and there's nobody under the age of 15 in here. And to start off with, we don't know why. It's just this thing that happens. And we follow a group of teenagers in a small little town. They're on their own, and I mean everybody over the age of 15 has gone. They're just not there. So the older teenagers in this story are looking after babies, toddlers, little kids, while all hell literally breaks loose and things get nasty really quick. This series actually does have a warning on the back of it saying contains scenes of cruelty and some violence. These do get pretty graphic. Some of the stuff that happens in here is very gross, and some of it is very hard-hitting. And if you're slightly more of a sensitive reader, you might want to take these very, very carefully. But it's a great series. I really wish this was kind of done, but I don't think they'd get away with doing it, purely because of what goes on in here. But they are very, very enjoyable if you like the more horror side of things. There are, as you can see, 6 books in the series at the moment, and I think there's an extra ones coming out at the moment as well. I'm not sure on that, I would have to check. But 6 books if you want to enjoy the entire series, highly recommended. If you are more into the fantasy realm of things and you're a big anti-hero person, then you can't go wrong with this duology. This is Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. It's set within her Grisha universe series, which there is a trilogy. I have not read that trilogy. I jumped straight in with this duology, and I have to say I didn't feel like I missed anything out. I really enjoyed this. The world building was amazing. Our lead characters, they're a very interesting group of characters, and it's very much from the villain's point of view, but you root for these guys. Highly recommended, highly intelligent, very, very well written, and it's only 2 books. Yes, they're big books, but the way you rattle through it, not a problem. Lani Taylor's Strange the Dreamer. I got this last year. This is the UK edition, for those wondering why it looks so pretty. This is a fantasy series, and I've described this as a modern fairy tale story. It's one of those books where you start reading it and you don't know where you stand, and then about 80 pages in, things start clicking and you start understanding a little bit more, but you have to stick with it. This is not for those people who just want to pick up a book and absorb it. This one makes you work at it, makes you understand what's going on and understand the characters. Nothing is explained clearly to you. You are expected to put the dots together as you read it and figure it out. I love that in a story. That really appeals to me, and I don't mind working on my books. So for me, this is the perfect book. But if that's not for you, then maybe try other books by Lani Taylor, because she's a very, very good writer. She's very good fantasy, and a lot of people enjoy her writing style as well. So she's very, very accessible to newer readers. One author you'll hear bandied about an awful lot in the YA section of the bookshop is Sarah J Maas, and that's because she is at the moment one of the biggest selling authors in that genre. A lot of her books could be classed as new adult, which is kind of like a subgenre of YA fiction. They are books that are aimed at very much the top end of the teenage reading group. So her famous series at the moment is the Throne of Glass series. These are the American editions. Starting with Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Hair of Fire, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms. This is a short story collection, Assassin's Blade, and we've just had a new one come out called Tower of Dawn, which I'm calling book 5.1 because it runs parallel with the events in book 5. Over in the UK, the books are this style. They are white on the front, with Selena, which is our main character we follow, in her assassin's outfit, as it were, and then on the back it's normally a dominant colour, and her rear, which is in a dress, which normally is mentioned somewhere in the story. What I will say about the Throne of Glass series is I didn't like it to start off with. I hated Selena. I thought she was a terrible character, and it's only because of the supporting characters that I kept reading it. And I have found that it's not the heroine that I'm rooting for, it's everybody else around her that I find much more interesting, and I want to learn more about it. But this is a pretty big epic fantasy series. The plots are all neatly tying together as we go through the series. Things become clearer as we learn more, but there's enough to be given for you to figure it out as well as you go, which is really good. It does get quite graphic in places, not just in the violence but also in the sex descriptions. Some of the sex scenes are pretty detailed, and yeah, some people might think it's too much. It is character development, so as far as I'm concerned, it's not there just for the sake of being there. But I really have to say, it's one of those series that has really grown on me, and I really like it quite immensely. She has also written another series, which is A Court of Thorn and Roses. There's currently 3 books out at the moment on that. And if you're more into the fairy side of fantasy, that might be the series for you to try out by Sarah J Maas. But if you like more assassins and epic fantasy style books, then go with the Throne of Glass series. Another book series I want to point you to is the Lunar Chronicles collection. These are written by Marissa Meyer. So we start off with Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, Winter, and then we've got Fairest, which is a novella, and Stars Above, which is a short story collection. These are fairy tale retellings in a sci-fi setting. They're so much fun, they're quick and easy to read, it's nice seeing all the plots point together, and the overarching storyline is really well constructed, the worlds are believable, the whole history between Earth and Luna, that's all believable, it's all been created and hangs together really well. And I have to say my favourite of the books would be Cress, because it's just so much fun. But I liked all of these books, I couldn't put them down, and I read them really, really quick. Winter is quite a thick book, but it doesn't read like a thick book. It's one of those where you whiz through it and go, wow, did I just get through that really quickly? So if you're into the fairy telling side of things, but you fancy trying it as a sci-fi, then I highly recommend the Lunar Chronicles series. And then finally, it wouldn't be a book recommendation without a Discworld recommendation. So I've picked 2 for you. The first one I picked up was Soul Music, which is a death story, and we see about Susan's parents in this, how rock and roll music comes to the Discworld. It's very enjoyable. It's very, very heartfelt in places and very touching. So if you want to know more about death in the Discworld and his family, try Soul Music. If you want more crime, mystery, adventure, actiony style books in the Discworld, go for Guards. This is the first book in the Night Watch series. We're introduced to Samuel Vimes and his ragtag group of police officers and guys on the beat as they try and defend Ankh-Morpork from dragons. Yeah, it's great fun. So much fun. So if you have not read any Discworld by Terry Pratchett, try out Soul Music or try out Guards. I know Guards is hugely popular with a lot of Discworld fans. It's a good place to start if you're sitting there going, well, where do I start with like these 30 odd books? Guards is the first of the Night Watch, and you can just run through the Night Watch books from that point. It pretty much stands alone, explains everything you need to know, and it's a very enjoyable read. So there you are, some book recommendations for the older end of the YA section, slipping into new adult books. There are obviously a lot more out there that I haven't mentioned, and it is worth checking out other booktubers to see what they like. Reagan at Peruse Projects, she's a very good one to check out, as is Jessie the Reader, and Benjamin from Benjamin of Tombs. They are really in the know of the stuff that's out there in the YA genre that's really good and popular at the moment, if you want to be popular, and also what's just really good out there. I'll leave links to various channels that I think you should go and check out that might help you in making choices for what to read. And like I say, just because you're like me and in your late 30s doesn't mean you can't read YA books. It's perfectly acceptable. Don't let anybody shame you for reading what you want to read. If you're enjoying the story, go for it. So there we are. Please leave recommendations down in the comments below of particularly good older YA books that you think people should be aware of. Obviously it's a huge range, and I haven't actually touched on several genres within that bracket because I don't do contemporary, so contemporary's not my thing. But if you know someone who knows a good contemporary for YA older readers, let me know, please. I might try. As always, my social media links are in the description box down below. You can find me on Goodreads, Twitter and Instagram. Say hi, that would be great. And I do try and follow people back who follow me on there. I've also started up a book blog, which is slowly ticking over quite nicely. There'll be more detailed reviews in there, general wafflings about what I'm reading, lots of pretty pickies because people like pickies. So if you'd like to follow my blog, leave me links to your blogs as well. That would be really nice, please, because I like building links in the community. As always, thank you very much for watching and happy reading. Bye everyone.